Hey there, Cambridge. This is City Councillor Nadeem Mazen coming to you with an update from the Monday, June 29th meeting, a special meeting of the Planning Board together with the Ordinance Committee on the Volpe site. And the Volpe site has been called the most precious and most exciting development target in the world. And the reason is that you've got prime real estate in Kendall Square, right at the heart of the biotech scene, right at the heart of the tech scene, and it's owned by the Volpe Transportation Center, an entirely self-funded government entity that is not funded through appropriation by Congress. They're entirely funded through the commissions and the payment of other departments and other private enterprises hoping to improve transit safety, research, and all kinds of other interesting work. The Volpe Center is due for an upgrade, and since they're not funded by Congress, they have to figure out how to trade some of their land for a new building, potentially a $1,000 per square foot building, amounting to some 400,000 square feet of usable space. We're talking about a $400 million building, and so the rights that they're going to have to give away on that Volpe land constitutes an exciting opportunity for some developer. And the community and the city council, the rest of us, are left wondering what exactly will the zoning and the community benefits be on that developer part of the land. City council has no control over federal properties, which are exempt from zoning, but the rest of that land, which will be traded by Volpe in exchange for their new building, will be subject to zoning. So we want to figure out what we can get out of it. Right now, the city, in cooperation with Volpe, has been proposing an agenda for this land that is not quite specific enough and not quite beneficial enough to the community, I think, to convince the council. And it wasn't just me talking in sharp terms about increasing benefit. I felt a great deal of consensus in that room. I think of only one councillor, who wanted to forward this straight away as is, and we had 8 councillors who wanted to ask for more. Here's what's being proposed. Heights of 350, maybe even 500 feet. I'm asking, how can we have more 350-foot buildings rather than 500-foot buildings? And that's actually already very high. 350 feet is already very high, and because we're far away, I think, from the heart of Central Square, the heart of residential Kendall, people are okay with the higher heights, which is kind of new and unusual for a development project. Community members have been supportive. But that doesn't mean that we want to see a 500 or 1,000-foot tower that's visible from Mount Monadnock, as one concerned citizen put it. And so those renderings, I think, were a concern for a lot of councillors. We want to see more than 10% affordable housing. It would be crazy to have the best and most exciting development in the country or in the world and then have less than our already too low affordable housing percentage. So the proposal for this site was 10% affordable, 5% moderate. I said it should at least be 15% affordable, 5% moderate, if not as much as 20% affordable and 5% moderate, which I heard from one public commenter, and I think is very reasonable. Keep in mind that the site is large, and it's in fact so large that the developer will have a lot of flexibility to meet public benefits. There will be the proposals for a 25% open space, and I'd really like to see that at 33%. The original agreement was for 42%, and there will need to be some flex on how much open space there is as a trade-off for other community benefits. Again, if there's a flexible space there, if we can have somewhat tall buildings, if we can have enough affordable, and if we can have developers making money at the same time that they're bringing that benefit, I can't see why we wouldn't make a little bit of a restrictive push for these developers to be more creative, to maximize green and open space at the same time that they have to meet these other benefits, and I'm sure that they can move the puzzle pieces to make that a reality. That will be seen in the upcoming RFP, a request for proposals or qualifications, from different developers who will be working with Volpe, and they just all want to see what the zoning turns out to be so that they can speculate and plan. There's a couple more items. There's innovation space, which has traditionally meant co-working space or incubator space. My concern is that this type of space, whether it's 5% or 10% or whatever of commercial on this development, needs to be subsidized or needs to be low cost such that you can start a business in the city without already being wealthy. To me, that seems very straightforward. I think this is not necessarily the priority of the council, not necessarily the priority of any developers or of Volpe themselves, but I think a very basic tenet of equitable building and housing is on the commercial side to have equitable subsidies for new small business and startup business owners. We need to encourage diversity. We need to encourage people to stay in this city rather than going to New York, San Francisco, or elsewhere, and we need to do that in such a way that brings in the full community. The other thing is, right now, the max commercial is 60%, minimum residential 40%. I want to invert that. Why don't we have 60% residential and 40% commercial? That will keep our residential offering for the square strong and make sure that we are actually not just increasing traffic haphazardly, but actually housing the workers in Kendall Square nearby to where people are working, thereby potentially reducing the traffic impact of development. So with all of that, now is the time to engage the community. I have stood pretty strongly for community engagement urgently now, at this point, before we get too far along. Of course, Volpe and others are saying, we can't know what to promise or what's being planned until we actually get a developer, and we can't get a developer until there's zoning. This is a catch-22 that's not acceptable. We must include the community now. We must get community input into zoning, and we must have that be what puts strictures on and inspires planning by the developer eventually. We cannot stand by while Volpe tells us, well, just give us what we want and I'm sure it'll work out great. Engaging the community now is incredibly important, and any outreach that you make now to your city councilors or to community development directly will be heard and will make a huge impact. You can always email me at nmazen@cambridgema.gov or Nadeem@votenadeem.com. I look forward to hearing from you soon.